Welcome back to Keeyzo's Corner. This is day 2 of Tech Week, and I have a really special guest in the house tonight. I think this is going to be very informative, so get your pen, get papers, write it down, take notes. The question today is crypto the key to black and brown generational wealth? My special guest today is Reggie Middleton. Welcome to Keeyzo's Corner, Reggie. Pleasure to have you here, man.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right in, man, because I know you got some people coming up. But let's, we were talking prior to the video starting, prior to the interview starting. And he was telling me some very interesting things. So I'm sure we're going to cover that during this interview. But I definitely want to make sure that you repeat some of that for the people because they need to know that. First, can you give us your background and tell us where how you got started in the business and all the stuff that you were telling us earlier?
Okay. Well, I'm going to start from the beginning because I don't want anybody to think that I'm different from somebody else. It's not like I made all these accomplishments, but I want to lay out my particular story. So I was born in Queens.
Oh, Queens, born and raised.
Yeah, right in Queens General Hospital. Spent my first years of life at St. Albans.
Right.
Moved out to Long Island, Roosevelt, Long Island.
Okay.
That's where it's a very small town, but Public Enemy, Dr. J, Eddie Murphy, etc. They all live like right around the corner from me. Went to Howard University. I'm a Bison, okay? And so is my baby girl, H U.
You knew.
Okay. She didn't do that, but that's all right. Okay. Thank you, brother. And from there, I graduated, and I had an inkling of wanting to know how finance worked, but I didn't have any mentors. As I was growing up, I was the type of kid who I wanted to always know how things work. So I would take things apart and put them back together, and they would work sometimes when I put them back together. But, to my parents' chagrin, they didn't always work. So I would take apart TVs, vacuum cleaners, everything else. I still had this curiosity, and I wanted to know how finance worked. And so I started businesses. This is right about the dot-com bubble and crash. I wasn't able to get that, and I wasn't able to take advantage of the 87 Black Monday crash. Almost everything after that, because I had this curiosity of knowing how things work, I was able to take advantage of it. So my first foray, maybe my first $1 million made, was in real estate. I purchased real estate in downtown Brooklyn, for those who are from New York, the Fort Greene area. And that had the advantage of demographics. You had educated blacks, brothers and sisters, coming in with their college degrees, doctors, lawyers. They wanted to be around their own, and they drove up rents. When you drive up the rents, you drive up the value of the property. And that made, that was a reason for the prices to go up. You also had other gentrification. You had the people who were moving from the suburbs back into the city. That drove prices up, and that was a plus. And I always wanted to buy things distressed. So when you buy something, an asset, you don't make money when you sell it. You make money when you buy it. If you buy it improperly, well, then now you have to dig yourself out of a hole. If you buy it properly, the wealth is inherent. So then things started getting carried away. And you had the credit bubble, and dead people were getting loans, et cetera. But that made prices go up even more. But I'm like, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 116. And I'm not even good at math, but 116 seems like a lot. So I started selling everything off. In 2000, I finished in 2006, the first half. The 2007 arrived, the floor fell out the residential market, exactly as I anticipated. The plan was to go and buy up everything for, pennies on the dollar, but I got stuck up in litigation. That wasn't the first time.
Right.
Okay, but we'll possibly get to that later. From then, I took the money that I made and I said, I want to do business with all these dudes who had these hedge funds that had 10 and 20 times leverage. Leverage is when you buy something, is when you borrow money or somehow increase the amount of movement that you get when you purchase or sell something. So normally, I buy this building, I pay cash. This building costs me, say, $60 million. I pay cash for it, I take $60 million, I buy it, I get a 10% yield on it, I get $6 million a year. So suppose I just used $6 million and bought it, okay? Now I bought a $60 million building for $6 million. A 10% yield means I get 100% of money every year, right? That's a good deal. The problem is, whenever there's a positive, there's always a negative attached to it. So if the price of the building goes down 10%, I'm wiped out. Okay, now if it goes up 10%, I'm making 200% of my money. But that's if. So these guys had all this leverage. They were competing with me, and they were doing better than me, even though I did very strong returns. So I wanted to start a hedge fund, so I went to go start the hedge fund. But I didn't have the pedigree of the typical hedge fund entrepreneur. I went to Howard instead of Harvard.
Right.
You know, I went to the lawyers, and I'm going to tell you what they said with no malice, right? They said, you went to a freedman slave school. Okay. And they said, you know, we don't see people like you coming to start hedge funds. Okay, well, you see one now. As it turned out, I paid maybe $70,000 or $100,000. This is $2,007, right, to get the hedge fund started. And then when the market collapsed, which I saw coming, of course, it also collapsed the hedge fund market. So I spent the money to get everything, the papers done, the documents, the corporations, you know, signed, but couldn't really pull it off. But part and parcel of starting a hedge fund, since I was an unknown, I didn't work on Goldman Sachs prop desk, I didn't go to Harvard, etc. I said, let me show everybody that I am probably smarter than everybody else, at the very least as smart. Okay, confidence I'm not lacking. Self-awareness I'm not lacking.
Right.
You know, and I'm realistic. I'm not narcissistic. You know, there's certain things I can't do. I can't do it.
Right.
Things that I can do, I do. I suffered from things, I'm going to be honest, because a lot of people don't say it. I suffered from imposter syndrome, because despite the fact I'm very confident, the whole world tells me I can't do stuff. From the time I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. My parents told me I could do everything. Okay, when I come home, I get all this support. I go up to school, you can't do this. I walk down the street, you can't do that. Cops come, you know, I could tell you stories about, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s. So all I get is this, you can't do this, you can't do that. It does affect even a confident man.
Right.
So the imposter syndrome affected me and held me back. And then I took one day, I looked at my returns on real estate. Phenomenal. I did like a 1,200% return, you know, cash on cash. After I tried to start the hedge fund, and even though it didn't work out, I told you I was trying to tell everybody, show everybody how smart I was. I started a blog, Boom Bust Blog. This was 2007. I just wrote my thoughts on. And at the same time, I wanted to short anybody who did business with me in real estate. So this was before everybody started collapsing. So short means when you put money in, you make money if the price of the stock or whatever you short goes down, but you lose money if it goes up. I was confident they're going to go down. You know why? Because 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 116. You don't even need to be good at math of that. So when the actual value comes close to what 2 plus 2 equals, and everybody bought it at 116, they're going to lose money. If I shorted it, then I make money. I called Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, the whole real estate crash on the residential side, the commercial real estate crash, the European sovereign debt crisis, the boom of Google, Apple's drop when nobody thought it could happen. Research in Motion used to do the BlackBerries. I had my own staff analysts working for me. I outsourced them out to India because cost matters. And then one day I said, I outperformed everybody you see in the Wall Street Journal in terms of returns. And I wrote research reports to give them out for free. I outperformed almost everybody in real estate. Yet, why would I have the imposter syndrome? They should have the imposter syndrome. I outperformed them, right? The man from the freedman slave school, because I still remember that statement. And that statement, I didn't like it, but since it wasn't said in malice, it educated me. That's how they think of me. So going forward, I did that analysis, teaching people how to, you know, make money after I take a position. And someone came to me in 2010, said, you should look into Bitcoin. This is a year after it launched. So you can get out my face. I'm not trying to be bothered, right? Whatever Bitcoin is, right? 2011, said it again. 2012, and then the guy kept bugging me. In 2013, I said, let me take a look at it. I read the white paper, which is basically the academic instructions on, what it's about. And I was like, wow, this is a good idea. What Bitcoin was and should be now, I'm not going to say is money that has its own transportation rails. So right now, if you have money, it comes from the Federal Reserve. It's printed by the Treasury, right? The actual dollars are printed by the Treasury. The units are printed by the Federal Reserve. And then you have to use one of their agents to move it, a bank or a payment company, okay? And they control the amount of it and how much it is, et cetera. This is money that has no Federal Reserve. You can move it without using any bank or any payment company. You store it, right, on any device or on a piece of paper or memory. And nobody has control of it but you unless you allow someone to steal it. And when you send it, it's like having a car, right? Think of what the value of a car would be if it can travel all over the world without even putting gas in it, or a very small amount of gas, anywhere. And it goes over any ocean, any sea, through any barrier, any geographic or geopolitical boundary, any country, simply by hitting send. How much would that car be worth?
A lot.
A lot, especially compared to your Ford Taurus, right?
Yeah.
Or even your Benz. So this was a good idea, and it gets even better because you could program the money. You could tell this money, I'm going to send it to FUBU, okay? But only if FUBU produces a red line that says Reggie is the best between the hours of 9 and 5 over the next 3 days. If they do that, they get to cash this. If they don't, they can't cash it. So I can actually give you the money, and you can't even spend it until those conditions are met. That's called a smart contract. So now you could program the money that you could send anywhere in the world that nobody else could control. It's a good idea. So I said, something, fighting all these hedge funds and all that, I'm going to go and do this full time. And that was 2013. When I was trying to create it, I was trying to recreate Wall Street on the Bitcoin blockchain. And there were certain things I just couldn't do. I hit these roadblocks, et cetera. So I brought some very smart people aboard, very smart people, geniuses, okay? As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to do a little mini clothing line. I'm going to do polymathic AF because that's going to be me. Now that I've broken past the imposter syndrome, I'm now on the other side of it. Right. Okay, you should discuss that. Remember that?
Let me know.
Polymathic AF, okay? Trademarked already, so you don't.
Yeah.
So when I conquered these problems, my partner, who was a software engineer that did work for Amazon, Yahoo, Google, Grand Central, et cetera, and he was a patent attorney. He said, you want to patent this? Why not? Go ahead. So we patented it in 2014. And then we went on to do other things, and I had trials and tribulations. I don't know if we have time to go through that, but, not everybody wants to see all demographics succeed at a certain level.
Oh, for sure.
Okay?
Facts.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into, all that, but, those, if you know, right? Now, those patents, we prosecuted for 7 years. Prosecuted means we went back and forth to the patent office. We ended up filing in, China, Japan, Europe, the U.S., all the big economies, okay? They started hitting December 2021. I got a Japanese patent. 2 months later, I got a U.S. patent. Maybe about a year after that, I got another Japanese patent. This February, I got another U.S. patent. Still working, fighting on the others. These patents are called foundational technologies. Basically, it's the ground layer that many other industries are built upon.
Right.
Okay? So there's a lot that I can't say because I always get in trouble when I talk too much. But imagine if in 1993 you patented e-commerce and sending money over the internet. Fast forward to today. That means you basically control e-commerce, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Oracle, Microsoft, Apple. Basically anybody who did anything over the internet. Okay, and the reason is you own the infrastructure, the intellectual property that everybody has to use. I was telling a brother here, right, today's wealth is intellectual property. 200 years ago, the big, those who would have made, if the Fortune 500 was available, those top 10 would have probably been industry or real property. Okay? Now, it's intellectual property, I can tell you. And I'm very good at money because I told you I outperformed all these Wall Street guys. When they did The Big Short, I was like, oh, they're going to come interview me. Nobody called me. I was a little upset. They did the Wakanda movie. I'm the Black Panther, right? Nobody called me. But that's all right. So maybe my aspirations were dashed there. So with the patents, I consider myself holding some of the most valuable intellectual property in the world, self-proclaimed. Okay? If you look at the patents, you can see where it's cited by. That means companies that had to say that my patent came before theirs, or their stuff either relies on it or has to go around or has something to do with it. There are 127 sites, the biggest names in finance and tech. Bank of America, Microsoft, NASDAQ, Citibank, etc. And there's a lot to go on. Stay tuned. You're probably going to see this in the news very soon. And that's all I can say about that. So that's a very long-winded way of explaining who I am and what I've done to this point. And my biggest accomplishment are my 3 children, 2 of which are here. 1 is very late. And I have, by far, it's my biggest accomplishment. Now that I'm pretty much an empty nester, I plan on taking all the energies that I use in raising my children and directing it solely to my goal. My goal is peer-to-peer capital markets, the ability to have that 10-year-old genius in Abuja, Nigeria, compete directly with the trading desk of Goldman Sachs without any disadvantage. Right. Or to have that 11-year-old girl in Sri Lanka trade with that kid in Detroit, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, thank you for that, man. It's appreciated. That's a well documented history of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I found it very interesting that, when you were breaking that down to us before, so I was like, hold on, make sure you tell us on camera, because I want the people to know who you are. And, we have a bunch of questions that I want to get to you, especially for Tech Week. So I'm going to jump right into those. First question is, how can cryptocurrency specifically address the unique financial challenges faced by Black and brown communities?
How can cryptocurrencies do it specifically? I tell you, I'm going to be one of those difficult guests, okay? I have your permission?
Yes.
Okay. So a technology is never going to solve like an innate problem. I'm a big believer in the technology behind cryptocurrencies, not cryptocurrencies themselves. And I'm going to explain it because I'm sure not everybody's an expert on this.
Right.
Let's go back to the internet. The internet was the last big paradigm shift. That's why I use that example. Imagine if you had patents on the internet. The internet itself, on the web, it'd be very valuable. But suppose you had a choice, right? The internet works by sending bits of data, through wires or through the air or through fiber optic cables. They're called IP packets, internet packets. Those bits of that say 1 and 0. Those bits of data, when clumped in certain groups in a certain way, can represent my voice going through this mic, or my visage going through cameras, or anything, documents, etc. You have a choice, right? You can buy these IP packets and you could trade them and make money of them. And as things get popular, they could go up a lot in value. You can make a lot of money, right? Which the most people think of in terms of cryptocurrencies. And you could get a lot of wealth. When my first Bitcoin was 100 and change, Bitcoin's about $72,000 now. That's a lot of money, okay? But that's not true wealth. That's not power. Because you're playing games with the things that run over where the real wealth is. The real wealth is, and I said it earlier, the infrastructure, the actual intellectual property. So you bought the IP packets and traded, and they went from a couple of pennies to $72,000. The brother here decided to own the internet itself. Fast forward 34 years, 30 years roughly, who would be more wealthy? The brother that owns the entire internet, or the guy that had the internet packets and captured that increase in value? I'll give you a little hint, right? You came way back when the Europeans settled and they bought Manhattan for, I think, what, $12, $20, right? Who would be wealthier, the person who put a few buildings on Manhattan or the person that owns the island?
The person that owns the island.
It's not even close, right?
Yeah.
Not even, you can't even do the math to calculate it.
Right.
So people, you said how it would help black and brown people, I think was the question.
Right.
Right? You know what would help black and brown people? To teach them what wealth, true wealth and control,
really is,
and
yeah.
control really is.
Yeah.
And then have them pursue that. And then in the process of pursuing that, you have to learn how. Technologies don't make companies wealthy. They don't put companies out of business. Anybody who thinks that doesn't study their history. Okay, what technologies do is they enable certain efficiencies. And these efficiencies are used by smart people or lucky people or people who just study. There's a difference. Smart is your intellectual capacity, right? Your ability to run. Okay, lucky is you just lucked out at the end of the race. Or you can study. When you study, you amass knowledge. 3 different concepts, a lot of people just put them all together, right? Either all 3 or a combination, 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3. If you, lost my train of thought now, where was I, right? If you decide to learn how these technologies work, you then take advantage of the big companies who decide not to. So you create a new business model using this technology. Once you create the new business model, the other company can't keep up, and then they collapse. Okay, but a lot of people are intellectually lazy, and they just see new technology, company collapse. But they don't understand the difference between causation and correlation. One is correlation. It happened, the other thing happened with it. The other one is causation. Okay? You know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Right? So to bring this, to give you an example, we have the technology of digital photography. Right? If I'm not mistaken, Kodak Polaroid had the patent. I think it was Polaroid that had the patent on the digital camera, believe it or not. You know? And they didn't use it. So digital photography took over. It changed the business model of how pictures are taken, how they're developed. You didn't have to go through chemical labs and everything else. The company that invented the digital camera, or whose employee invented it and had a patent on it, was put out of business by their own invention.
Wow.
So it's not the technology, it's using the technology to change your business model and change the rules of the game. You know, so I, as a 56-year-old brother from Brooklyn, okay, there are a lot of games that I would not be able to even compete in. They wouldn't even allow me in the playing field. Okay, so if I got in the playing field, I probably wouldn't be able to win because they have, if it was basketball, they have all the tall point guards and everything else. So what do? I use technology and I change the rules of the game. Now the game is you have to be roughly 6'2", 6'1", have 3 children, look like me, sound like me, act just like me at the same time. And if you do, you win the game. Now, I'm the winner because I can't beat them at their game. I change the business model, I change the rules. That is how you succeed. And if you succeed at a big level, you get true wealth. True wealth is not making a lot of money, buying a lot of cars, appreciating assets, etc. You see a lot of that on the internet. And then true wealth is not making, you know, more assets and liabilities. That's not it either. True wealth is not generational wealth. It's not. You hear that a lot, but they don't study the history. True wealth is dynastic wealth. In other words, when you make it, it lasts, and it lasts to the next century. 2024, okay, 3024, it's that century. 100 years from now, right? 3024, you have my great, 20 years per generation. 4 generations down, they're still surviving, thriving, and expanding on what I did today. A dynasty. And dynasties usually go way past 100 years. So if you can think of dynasties, you have the Medici, you have the Rothschilds, you have quite a few dynasties. Many in Europe, you have quite a few in Africa, but of course, you know, not everybody wants to promote the African dynasties as they promote the European. You have Asian dynasties, okay? America is not old enough to really have a dynasty because we're only 200-something years old, okay? And that's European colonized America, right? If you go past then, you had dynasties, but those dynasties were colonized in I would say primarily destroy. But I don't want to get in there because I'm going to start stepping on people's feelings. So let's.
No,
let's stop it.
I just appreciate you sharing the knowledge because, you know, a lot of times people, especially our people, I'm not even going to say our people in general who have this knowledge, they don't want to share it and educate the next man. I never knew what that was about. And I've been through certain things and dealt with certain people like that who don't want to share the knowledge. Me, myself, I'm always like an open book. If it's something that I know that can help you, I'm not going to charge you for it. I want you to succeed just as well as I'm succeeding so we lift each other up as a race.
Right.
A lot of people don't do that. So I applaud you for doing that and sharing your knowledge with the audience. Yeah, this is going to be a good one, man. This is, you know, I've done a lot of interviews and sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm talking to people and I'm like, okay, you know, we going through it, emotions and whatnot, but like I'm like intensely like focused on every word that you're saying and listening to you, you know. So I just want to appreciate you and applaud you for that.
Appreciate it too.
Yeah, definitely, and we gonna stay in touch, man, because it's somebody that I need to know. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What steps can individuals in these communities take to educate themselves about cryptocurrency and make informed investment decisions?
Okay. Well, first, you have to find out what it is, because a lot of people say cryptocurrency. You're not really don't be concerned with cryptocurrency. Understand the technology, okay, thoroughly, and you can do that simply by reading.
Right.
You know, just be careful what you read. Okay, primary sources only. So that means you can't do Google searches with media. You know, if you pull up, I'm gonna be bold, Fortune magazine article or Forbes or Wall Street Journal, you're getting a reporter's view on something that they probably are not very well versed in. And that is combined with an ulterior motive, right? They have an agenda, not necessarily bad, so I'm not picking on them, but they do have an agenda. If that agenda is not perfectly aligned with yours, you're miseducated, okay? And I've picked Forbes or Fortune, but that's the way it is. Now, there are media outlets who have very educated editors and knowledgeable editors and reporters, etc. But to have a high level of knowledge, it's hard to come by. It's rare, you know. And when you're constrained by a profit motive and your agenda and other stuff, you know, you just have a lot more demand than you have supply. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Primary sources only. If you want to find out about a legal dispute, you pull the documents yourself and read them, and you read both sides. You don't get both sides. You get a lawsuit, you get something, usually you only get the plaintiff's side, or you get the side that's popular in the media, or someone who likes a pretty girl, right? But do you want the popular information or do you want the truth?
Right.
If you want the truth, you always need both sides. My son uses, and my daughter too, and my oldest son, I guess all of us now, we use generative AI a lot. I have to tell the AI specific instructions. Whenever you give me information, give me both sides. Don't return one side of an argument or discussion. Now, when I ask you to go out and fetch stuff, it looks very different from what most people get, Google, Twitter, etc. Because again, both sides are not popular. Most people want confirmation bias. You know, basically, you have an idea. If you want to say who are better athletes, black people or white people, okay? And I'm going to just be as controversial as possible. Black people want to hear that black people are better basketball players, okay? Let's put to the side who's better or not, okay? If you want to know the truth, you wanted to go and find out statistically who's better and why. But most people just want their idea confirmed by whatever information they get. I could use this, right? And I could tell you how difficult it is to get a good answer on that. It says black people are better at basketball. Then I turn around and say,
we are. No.
Right. Then I turn around and say, okay, what's a black person? And then you see it spinning and spinning, because now it has to think about it. And it responds. If it responds almost anything that's scientific, it's going to say there's really no such thing, right? Race itself is a social construct. There is no such thing, right? If your mother is white and your father's black, are you black? It doesn't matter what answer you say, If I challenge it scientifically, you're going to choke or you're going to give us unscientific supported answer. And then let's suppose you convince the AI saying, okay, race is a social construct. It doesn't exist. Well, then that means there's no such thing as racism. And it says, of course, that's wrong. Racism is not scientific. It's not a social construct. I got scars all over me, right? That show racism is very real. But then you have to, now you're challenging everybody's premise. How could racism be real if race isn't real? Because that social construct is believed by society and they act upon it. And if they think black lives don't matter as much as other lives, or white lives don't matter as much as whatever you want to plug in, and they act upon it, that's a reality. Gunshots are real. Jail sentences are real. Bankruptcies, the inability to get a mortgage, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. See, I'm a big believer in fact, okay? And I don't mind spinning a story, but when my livelihood depends on knowing the truth is what I need. That's a very long-winded way of saying, if you want to learn about cryptocurrency, learn how to research and get the truth and get facts, learn the facts, and then build yourself up on it. There are two things you have to know about a lot once it comes to the technology behind crypto and crypto itself. You need to know technology, and you need to know finance and economics. Okay? Long-winded way of saying it. By the way, I'm going to get a lot of pushback and feedback on that race as a social construct. But listen, anybody wants to have an intellectual debate, let's do it.
Hey,
I
I think you're ready for the debate. You know what I mean? So
yeah, like I said, I'm a black man through and through, proud of it and everything else. But facts are facts.
nah, it's just, you know, like I come from a militant mother, so she always bucked the system.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't like, you know, she taught me how to read between the lines. So basically study what they don't say.
Right.
You know, you hear what they say, but what are they not saying? And then try to digest that and figure out, and, you know, and the latest thing she had me all on 100 was the whole COVID thing. You know, she's like, listen, you know, I'm not taking the shot. I don't know what's in that shot. They developed the shot too quick. Or something. Like she was just going on and on, and I'm sitting there and listening to her. But I'm on one side of my brain, I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right, but people are dying out here, and this may be serious. Like, you know, so I just started to study and reach for more information. Yeah, and then it started coming from this way and that way, and then it started getting scrambled, and then things that they were saying wasn't coming true. It's, you know, like whoa. But by that time, everybody was getting vaccinated. Yeah. So then I was getting like hated on because, oh, you're gonna kill everybody because you're not vaccinated. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro, but you don't know what's going on. Like you don't really know what's happening right now. So how could you jump to conclusions? Yeah. But that's a whole nother story. But you know, that was like one of the things that we were just going back and forth for a while. But you know, like I said, you have to, like you said it, you have to have two sides to every story. Like somebody just can't get on TV and say, do this is what you got to do, and if you don't do this, you know, your life is over. Then it's like, but wait a minute, like, what's the other side of that story? You know what I mean? So,
this is a camera that's on for me.
Yeah, that's the camera.
I tell everybody, if you only have one side of the story, you have the wrong story. Just that simple.
How can individuals balance the risk and potential rewards of investing in cryptocurrency as a strategy for building generational wealth? Okay. Now, you kind of already talked about that, but... Yeah.
So I now go back. I'm just going to reiterate what I said. You know, number one, in America and in Europe, I'm going to exclude other continents for now, but, you know, I could go through Asia, which is actually very diverse. But, you know, I'm well-versed in America. I know a little something about Europe, okay? And I actually know, you know, Africa and Asia rather well as well. But, you know, these are different. It gets to be a large conversation. So let's just say in America, those who would be identified as black, certain amount of melanin and a certain way of growing up, right, with a certain background, we simply don't have the geopolitical, and the socioeconomic power, okay, that those who be identified as white would have. Hopefully, that shouldn't be argued. I'm down to arguing if anybody's ready, but we have better arguments to have, okay? The reason that is so is because we don't control infrastructure. Infrastructure is what you want, and you have to be truly aspirational. Why would you be concerned about generational wealth? If you go back, I was born in New York. I was born in Queens. I grew up in New York, been in Brooklyn for like 25 years. But I can go all the way back to the Gold Coast of Ghana, okay? And from Ghana, right, in the Gold Coast, they came over. They didn't come over. They were brought over against their will, okay? And they landed in Charleston. And I can map on my father's side, okay? My father's a Geechee, right, from McCall and Santee, South Carolina. Okay, you can look at the Geechees. You can see Geechees are very similar to the west coast of Africa. We have, I call it Geechee gap, that little gap between our teeth. Okay, that passage, okay, didn't empower us. But let's suppose we had one breakout woman or man or child or all three, a breakout family, and they were able to escape slavery and avoid it. They were able to create their own technology, okay? It was illegal for them to actually own a patent for the first 30 or 40 years of the patent office, believe it or not, because they weren't men, they weren't human, they were 3/5 of a man, okay? But let's suppose you push all that to the side, and they were able to do this, and they created generational wealth. I wouldn't even feel it. Between 8 and 12 generations later, counting my children, they wouldn't see, touch, or have any of that money. Generational wealth is truly nothing. What do they want? Dynastic wealth, right? You want wealth that skips centuries. And I don't mean go to the next century, skips just centuries. So you want to be the Medicis, you want to be, the Rothschilds and everybody else. That's what everybody should aim for. If you fall short, you could fail. If you fail on dynastic wealth, you land on generational wealth, which is, the golden holy grail for many people.
Right.
It should be considered failure for those who are truly aspirational, honestly. Okay? So how do you get to that point? You own the infrastructure. Once you own the infrastructure, race as a social construct doesn't exist. Genetically, it's a good chance that I might have more genetically in common with the average person than you. It's a possibility. I could be wrong, I could be right. Okay? But you know what does exist? Racism. Institutional, structural racism. How do you beat that? You own the infrastructure. Whoever owns the infrastructure owns everything else. You own the political system. You own the financial system. Okay? You own the means and ability to create and mass produce food. You own the ability to sell the food. You own the media. You own what people absorb. My kids don't watch TV. They're on the phone right now. You own the infrastructure. You own social media. Okay? In the 90s, 93, 92, I first got into the computers. Then I got into the internet in 94, 95. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. I could create a website, and now I can bypass the pipes that everybody used to control. We had this discussion a little earlier about the music industry and how the difference between, who am I going to name now? The small independent, music label and Sony. The difference between them was Sony was the only way to get music out to the masses. Okay? I'm using Sony, but use any of the big, labels. Now, with the internet, you have pipes. Everybody could get it out. So now what's the difference between the small guy and Sony? There is none, except for Sony has more money. But we all have to use the same pipes. So Sony takes that money to market. If you got money and market it, you keep 90% of your own assets, your own intellectual property, the real wealth, okay? And then you give somebody a small amount for marketing. You buy Instagram ads and YouTube ads and Twitter ads and everything else. And now you get the wealth that you would normally give away to everybody else, and you get a small percent of your own publishing,
Right.
which is ridiculous. How are you going to create something? You create something great. You give it to somebody else. and then you accept the pennies back from them.
But why do you think people do that though? Because a lot of people do it.
Because they do what everybody else does.
Yeah.
They do what they see. They do what they're told.
Mm-hmm.
I never did that. As a matter of fact, I always did the opposite. And I was a good kid, you know. I didn't get in trouble in school a lot. But just because someone said that's the best. I remember once I was listening to the brother Terrence Howard, who has a very interesting story, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
So, but he said something that brought me back to my childhood. And I remember thinking, knowing, feeling, I think I was maybe 5 years old, 6 years old. And we were discussing heat in, school. And I was like always in the advanced classes in school. And they were saying heat energy is basically what creates hot and cold. So when heat energy leaves an area, okay, it becomes cold because the energy is not there. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You have two forms of energy. You have heat energy, you have cold energy, okay? And they intermingle, like yin and yang, like positive and negative. You don't just have a positive, and when positive's not there, negative occurs, okay? The science teacher said, no, that's not right. I'm like, how do you know? Because I do. Well, show me how, prove it. I don't have to. I'm like, and that's why you're a fool. Fooled, ED. But I'm not gonna lie, I thought that's why he's a fool. Because I could be wrong, no problem. Right? If you can't prove me wrong, I'm not wrong until proven wrong. Right? And if you have to say just because, you're not right. So if every 5 or 6 year old, right, observed, studied, and held to the convictions they're proven wrong, you would have very great people. And I'm talking like by high school, right? The reason why a lot of us are held back is simply because we are told we can't do, or we should be held back. Imposter syndrome. I had it too. I tried very hard to make sure my kids didn't inherit it. Very, very hard.
Wow. This is deep. You should teach a master class on this, man. Like,
I mean, I do. I got master class on my YouTube channel. So
I got it. I'm logging in, man. I'm tapping in with you, man.
Yeah.
Listen, man. You shared a wealth of information that's truly needed, and the audience and the people watching are definitely going to be able to tap in and tune in with you. And like you said, you'll get some people that don't agree with you, but for me, I'm pretty tapped in. I'm a pretty smart individual. I know bullshit when I see bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. I love what you're talking about. And
for anybody who doesn't agree with me, listen, you don't need to
prove
agree
you
with me
wrong.
to be my friend. Yeah, prove me wrong. And look, I love to dance. I'm a fighter, intellectual, but physical and all that. I love to dance. So if I'm wrong, come show everybody I'm wrong. You prove me wrong, I'll give you a hug and a kiss, shake hands, the whole nine.
Right.
Okay? If you could prove me wrong. If you can't prove me wrong and I win, still love you. It's just that simple,
Listen, man, I appreciate you pulling up on me, man, and sharing your knowledge. Let people know what else you got going on, if there's anything else you want to share with them, and then also let them know where they can find you.
Okay, well, I'm going to start an intellectual property campaign to show and teach everybody basically how the technology behind crypto works, and to show everybody that crypto is not just Bitcoin and Ethereum and NFTs. It's actually much more than that.
Okay.
The Federal Reserve has their payment system works on crypto. Almost every bank has its own crypto technology that makes it work. Netflix, your Netflix account is basically a serialized NFT. Okay, but the way they've learned through the media and not knocking the media, they're pushing things in a way that's not educational, but more agenda-based. My agenda is to take ownership of my own IP, right? I benefit by people learning and being educated. So that's what I'm gonna do. I've pulled back from social media a lot, but I'm gonna get back on it. I'm gonna do a podcast. At Reggie Middleton is how you reach me on Twitter, where I'm most active. I'm on YouTube. I think it's Boom Bust Blog is a YouTube channel. But you could do type my name in. If you do Google searches on me, you could see where a lot of powerful entities don't like me, and they have things that are not very nice to say. I invite you to research it. Just take my advice, look at both sides of the story. And you can see where I was told that I did bad things to people. If you take a look at it, those people who allegedly did bad things are my biggest proponents, by far. Okay? The Very Dow is a group of, so the Very Dow, at Dow Very, DAO_Very, at Reggie Middleton, that's me personally, and my YouTube channel, which I think is either Boom Bust Blog or Reggie Middleton. So those are my three major outlets. The Dow's not my outlet, but it's a group of enthusiasts to follow me, and I'm going to do big things. As I said, I believe that the output from the patents by the time of their expiry will produce at a minimum 1% of global GDP. That would be $2 trillion with a T, okay? And that's if I don't go any farther than I am now.
Right.
And trust me, I'm trying to go a lot farther. I got dynastic wealth, and dynastic wealth has nothing to do with money. Right. I don't even have a car, right? I live way below my means. I'm a pauper right now. But do you remember what my greatest creation was?
Your kids.
My kids, okay? Yeah. And I want them to create their greatest creation, and on and on and on and on. I love my children. I love my family.
Yeah, you talked a lot about them before they came.
Yeah. That is a sign, in my opinion, and a lot of people will disagree with this, but come see me, okay? Right? The success of a man's children is a measure of his accomplishments, okay?
Now, I told you my mother was militant, right?
Uh-huh.
She told me that before.
Well, she's
right.
Because
what she did, like, when I grew up, and we'll end with this, but when we were growing up, we were very poor. We were on welfare and everything. We didn't really have a lot of money. And what she used to do was, when she fed us, if she didn't have enough food for herself,
right,
she would make sure we ate. And she was like, "Oh no, I'll eat later." And I'd be like, "I eat later. Ain't no more food in here." But she always made sure that she took care of us and she ate. And then she would also share her food, or like she would feed somebody else and not eat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing? We barely have enough food for ourselves. Why would you be giving the food away to some?" She was like, "Well, that person hasn't eaten in 2 days.
Right.
I'm gonna be good. One of these Negroes gonna buy me some food tonight, so I'm gonna be good. I'm not worrying about it." But and I asked her, I said, why do you do that? And she said, because by me giving, it's gonna come back tenfold, and it's gonna come back to my kids.
Yeah.
So all of her kids are working, homes, businesses, like right. All of us, nobody's crazy, nobody's addicts, nobody's any drunks. And so we all kind of, we've been through some stuff, but we've all got our stuff together. And she's so proud of that now, because she's older, and she looks at us, and she and that's the one thing she says. "See, I told you, the good I do is going to live after me, and all of you are blessed." So, man, thanks for coming out, Reggie, man, and let me give you a pound here. Appreciate you.
And this is for Ma. Your mom sounds like a superhero.
Oh, she's she's my superhero, man. All day, every day. Listen, another episode of Keeyzo's Corner with the multi-talented, multi-informational Reggie Middleton, man. Thanks for coming by, man. Another one in the episode, and another one in the can. Another episode in the can. Keeyzo's Corner, we out.